Hey Blake, we're going to go and break down your run and see what we can do to improve these tricks. So we're just going to jump right into it. I also have some of my clips for each one of these tricks that we'll go and analyze after, but let's just watch through the whole thing and then we'll go and break down each individual maneuver. So front one, straight air. I already watched this video, I don't know who I'm pretending for. Back three. Back three, and then back one. So there's definitely improvements we can make on all of these, and we'll go and start with the front ones and work our whole way up. That one obviously speed's an issue, but we'll deep dive it after that. So let's work on this front one first. So you're coming in, and even though it's just a front one, I still recommend doing a setup carve. So you're just coming in purely on a heel edge. It's really hard to hold a constant position if you hold a heel edge that long. And we can see it here. Your board is starting to rotate off the takeoff because you're not really having edge pressure. This would be way easier to fix if you just had a little setup carve, because then you'd just be naturally on that edge and carry you over, because this is giving you a little bit of sliding but isn't giving you good contact. You can see you're almost rotated 90 going off the lip. For a front one, it's such a technical, challenging trick. You really need to make sure you're leaving off your tail to send you straight up, because if you're coming off on 90, you're not going to get the natural arc of a jump. So it's the same as missing the pop on a straight air. And that's why when you rotate, you're still on the angle of the takeoff. You didn't give a natural up and down. That's why you're coming in tail heavy there. And just a little side note, you're hitting the knuckle here. It's slushy. I don't know the conditions, but you generally want to be aiming for the landing. But yeah, this is basically it. You're going and slipping out a little bit early on your edge, causing you to not get the pop off the jump, not get the angle of the jump, what's causing you to be off axis in the air, making you come in and need to use counter rotation, and you're landing tail heavy. I have a front one of mine that we'll go and look at after, but that's basically it for that. We'll just do a little extra thing on the straight air. Your straight air is pretty good here. Nice straight, good pop, good timing. Your tail's making contact for most of the time in the jump. I'm noticing something with your riding though. You seem to like letting your hips sort of shift forward with that back knee. You can go through, Josh. With that back knee coming in. I can draw it right here. So see how your knee sort of turned in right now? That's not as strong of a position. I saw it in some of your other tricks as well. So you just be mindful of that back knee. Try to keep it more stacked, because this is opening your chest and hips to the takeoff a little bit. What's going to limit the amount of power you can get out of your straight airs. That's all we'll focus on that. And now let's break down the back three, because this is the one that's going to be the most complex to talk about. It just is the trick that has the most going on. So first off, the setup carve. Good setup carve. You don't need it to be this big, especially if the speed's slow. Limiting that setup carve and making it smaller will really increase the amount of speed you can get going into the jump. And the next thing is you're just cutting it a little bit short. See how you're going and getting like you're in your fully wound up position pretty early on here. So you're not having much dynamics in the wind up. So just lessen that setup carve and then save that wind up a little bit, and that's going to really help. Let's break down the trick itself. So your problem here is you're not on the right axis of rotation and you're not getting enough snap. This is happening because of your takeoff. So you're coming in, getting a good takeoff of the tail, so all this is good. But I want to notice a couple things here. First of all, your knee is coming inward towards your other knee. See how it's sort of like caving in here? That's like going to go and make it really hard to get a good strong pop off your tail, because your weight is being set here instead of set over here coming out. That's why it's important to focus on keeping that knee away and not coming in. Your knees can come in once you're in the air, because you can speed up rotation that way. One sec, just crack the back. You can speed up rotation, but when you're taking off the jump, you will really want your weight to be set over your tail to help you get that arc off the jump. But that's a more little side thing to work on. Your biggest problem is your back position. See how your fully wound up snap has you hunched over? This is going to make it so when you throw, you need to go and try straighten, but look at here, your arm is aimed a little bit downward. It's not much, but this little up to down motion is what's going to be throwing you slightly off axis and not putting you into the jump. It's also going to make it so you don't get as much rotational force, because what I really like here is you're leading the rotation with your head, you're spotting, but you don't have a rotation, and that's why your arms aren't staying in a cool spot, because you've got to use counter rotation to bring it back. Anytime you see arms go across someone when we're in the air spinning, that's because they use counter rotation, and for counter rotation, your arms get left behind. So the fact that this is happening is because you're not getting enough snap off a takeoff, because you're not getting a good straight plane axis of rotation. So even though your spot is good and your head positioning is good, you're slightly off axis with not enough power, making it so you need to use counter rotation. And if you're trying to squeak around a spin with counter rotation, especially something like a back free, it's going to be really hard to not land on your heels. So we will go and continue this, and we're going to just go and break down one of my back frees just off a rail takeoff here. I really recommend doing back frees off of like little side hits, little bumps, because it really helps. So that's it full speed, and now let's break down why this is working so good. So you can see, very small setup carve, switching to the toes, and as I'm switching to my toes, I'm opening up my hips and I'm winding up. This is giving me a lot more range of motion to play with. You don't need it this extreme for like a back free off a jump, but you want that wound up position with that strong toes. Let's see if we can see my knee here. Can't really see the knee here. We can see in the next shot. And next is the timing and snap location. See how my back is completely straight in this line, and my plane of throw is on a consistent line. This is what's letting me generate more power because it's utilizing my core, hips, the whole shebang. And that's what's going to go and let me pull through. So you can see how my head's leading for rotation, but because I set enough power initially, my whole body's staying and catching up with it. And you can see here, even here I use a little bit of counter rotation, and that's why my back arm comes to my front a little bit. So it's okay for a little bit of counter rotation, but when you're reliant on the counter rotation to get the full spin going, it's going to make it a lot harder to be clean. So the biggest difference between this and yours is the straight upper body and a straight plane of throw, keeping everything tight and giving you more power. We'll go and break down the next back free clip now, because that's one's off a jump, and we'll give a little better of a view. Oh, that's a straight air. One sec, did I not send it to myself? All right, we don't have the one I was going to use, but we'll use this one instead. This one has a grab, but the grab really doesn't matter. Grab's an afterthought. So coming in heels, bad heel check. Don't worry about that. But the timing I want you to pay attention to. See how it's a small heel check to a toe edge around the spoon? And once I get on my toe edge, then I wind up. It's because I don't want to hold that lined up position longer than necessary. And you can see I'm slightly hunched over here, but I'm straightening out slowly, so it's not actually affecting my snap. So I'm not snapping and using power that I'd use off the takeoff with that, because when I leave, my whole last bit of the spin is a straight up line with a good throw. And then my head is leading the rotation, but I'm not rushing it. I'm not disconnecting my upper and lower body, keeping everything tight and strong. And then once I spot, then I pull into the core and make it tight. So it's that extension, that full body extension off the edge with the rotational force. And then once you get it, then you tighten everything up and pull. And you can really see it here. When you're on the right axis of rotation, you can actually use your back arm to pull that spin and help you get it around. Still a little bit of counter rotation because I didn't snap hard enough, and that's why I have to go and shift the hips. And the last thing we're going to notice here, because I forgot to mention it, is just my leg position. Can we see it? Sorta. You can just see my legs in a strong position. This strong position is just going to make it easier and help you out. So I really think those are the only changes you need to make, because everything else is looking really solid on that free attempt. All right, now let's go and get back to your video. That is not your video. It's my first time using multiple videos for our video analysis, so don't have a good system. And lastly, we have the back one. So we'll just go and watch it full speed and then break it down. So it's really slow, obviously. Didn't go fast enough. But let's see what we can fix here. First thing I want to note is no setup carve. Again, a little bit of setup carve really helps because it's hard to hold an edge for that long, and you can see that you sort of need to give up holding that edge and you're popping a little bit early. Your biggest issue here is your spot location though. So because you're knuckling, you're trying to spot the knuckle what's right. That's where you want to be spotting. But because you're going too slow, it's making it so you can't actually go over the knuckle to spot it because you need to rotate faster than the knuckle's coming in. So right here, you should be up here and your spot should be continuing this as you go over the knuckle. But because you're landing on the knuckle, it's making it so your vision is boom, down here. You have to change your spot, losing that constant spot. So this is an example of why you need to clear the knuckle in order to actually utilize that spotting technique. Because you spot the knuckle, then rotate past it. And that's the whole thing that's going on here. You're spotting forward, you're spotting at it. It seems like your spot's in a good position. Maybe it's set like slightly too much to the side here, causing you to like not see it as easily. If you kept your spot like more, instead of having your spot like down over here, having your spot more down like this would really help you just stay more stacked and centered, and that way you'd be more flexible with your spot because your spot does seem like it's a bit too much out to the side. You really want your spot to be like right under you, so it'd be more like this, but you're also rushing to like see it. It's still a back one, so you still need to be a little bit blind, so just don't go and lead the rotation quite as much with your head, and that's going to help you, and then keep it more centered. If you keep it more centered, your spot, instead of being back over here, angled, not right, you'd be more like this over top of your board. You can also see here that your upper body is really bent forward over your board. You want your spot to be in a straight line behind you because right now you're spotting but hunched over, making it much harder to disperse the impact. And that's all stemming from your spot being out forward because that makes it so you need to lean your upper body in spotting. So change your spot to more centered on the knuckle and then clear the knuckle, and that's going to make it a lot easier. I actually have a shot of back one and front one. We'll try to wrap this up so we don't go too long, but so you can see here, my spot is a lot more straight that way. And then I'm willing to go and like, I'm not trying to hold it to the left because I'm traveling over it. And that's where the blind landing comes from. You need to be spotting at the point you're going over because now I'm going over it and my eyes are tracking it. And that's where you finish in the blind landing because your eyes are tracking it the whole way. Ooh, let's move that out of the way. So you can see, I go and have a point set in front of me, and as I go over it, my eyes follow. This is only possible if clearing the point you're trying to spot at. And then if you track it the whole way and hold it, you finish in that blind landing position and in a stacked. Notice how I'm looking right back behind my snowboard. This is keeping my body stacked and in line. The last thing is just we have a little clip of the front one, and we'll just show it quick. I should have done this when we did the front one. But you can see a little bit of a setup carve. A setup carve helps so much. Wind up, and then I'm holding that edge the whole way as I'm extending, keeping my board straight, snapping off my tail. This is putting me on the arc upwards, what's going to go and let me go and get down into that landing. And I'm using a bit of counter rotation. A little bit of counter rotation is super fine on a front one. It's really hard to do it without it because it's going to make you want to spin out. You just need that proper takeoff of the jump if you want to get a good front one because it's like a straight air. There isn't any massive spin going on, so you can't redirect your spin in the air. So you need that good pop off a tail with good edge pressure. That'll set you up to come back into the landing smooth and in control. Ooh, sorry for rambling on. I hope that wasn't too long for you. Watch this video, make these changes, and let me know what we can do to go and take it to the next step. If you need more help, if there's something that didn't make sense because you're really close with a lot of these things, I can tell you're thinking about it and you're almost there. There's just these slight tweaks you need to make. But I think once you make them, it's going to really help and really just make it click in your head. So let me know if it works, and if not, we'll go and try again with a different strategy.